Play me a C on your bass. Play me a G on your bass. Play me a D flat on your bass. If you didn't get all those, don't worry. We're gonna fix that right now. If we haven't met yet, my name is Alex, and this is my channel, Step by Step Bass, where I cover all things related to the bass. This lesson is part one of a two-part series covering the all-important topic of finding your notes on your instrument. We will also be covering all the concepts and terms that you'll need to know to understand and follow along in the discussion. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to find any note that you need to on your bass. You should be able to name any note that someone points to, and you should be so confident in your new note-finding abilities that you can go and teach this skill to somebody else. And it's all happening today in this video. In addition to finding your notes, I'm also going to teach you about whole steps and half steps, the letters we use to name notes in music, the distance between those notes, the concept of the zero fret, and what it means to play sharps, flats, and naturals. After we get these concepts down, I'm going to take you through a little exercise so that you can make sure that you're practicing what you've learned. We're also going to go through a couple of fun playing quizzes at the end, just to make sure that you've got it. As always, I'm including an index in the description below with links to various parts of the video. So please be sure to use that if you need to review any specific concepts or exercises. If you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to like my video and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell so that you don't miss new lessons when they come out. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments section. For this lesson, all you will need is an understanding of basic technique. If you need to review my lessons on technique, I will put a link on the screen as well as in the description. Also in the description, you will find a link to part 2 of this video, where I give you techniques and exercises to memorize the notes that we're going to learn today. Enough talk. Let's get into it. Let's talk about distance. If you were going to build a bass, you would need to know how long the neck is going to be. Well, we could measure that. If I want you to find a note on your bass, then you'll need to know how far away that note is. We can measure that too. Let's start with measuring the distance from one fret to the next one. This is the 2nd fret, and the 3rd fret is 1 fret away. That's the distance of 1 fret. Well, we call this distance a half step. And I'll give you a quarter if you can guess the distance of 2 frets. If you said a whole step, you're right. And that's the first thing that I want you to memorize. The distance of 1 fret is called a half step. The distance of 2 frets is called a whole step. Let's look at some examples together. Let's go to the 5th fret on your E string. Right there. I want you to go up by a half step. Now you should be at the 6th fret. Now I want you to go up from there an additional whole step. Now you should be at the 8th fret. Let's do another one. Let's start from the open A this time. Now I want you to play the open A with me. There we go. And I want you to go up by 1 fret. Now before we do this together, I want to talk through it with you because this is where I see students very commonly making mistakes. If you're at the open A string and you go up by 1 fret, you may be thinking that the open A is the 1st fret and that you're going to go now to the 2nd fret. But if you're thinking that, you're going to be wrong. This is the 1st fret. And if you go up half step from the 1st fret, now you're at the 2nd fret. So the open A really is no fret at all. We're going to think of that as our 0 fret. Open strings are like 0. If I'm at 0 and I go up by 1, I get 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. So the open A is 0. Add 1 fret, go up a half step. That puts you at the 1st fret. Let's go up a whole step now from the open A. So open A again. Now go up a whole step. Whole step is 2 frets away. So the 0 fret, which is the open A, plus 2 frets equals 0 plus 2, carry the 1. 2. So now you should be at the 2nd fret. So think of the open strings as your 0 fret and count up from there. Let's try going down the neck this time. I want you to go to your 5th fret on the D string. So, right there. Now I want you to go down the neck by a whole step. That's 2 frets. So, if you're at the 5th fret, go down by 2 frets. Now you should be at the 3rd fret. Down a whole step from the 5th fret. Now we're at the 3rd fret on the D string. I want you to go down an additional half step. This should put you at the 2nd fret on the D string. With this ability to measure distance in fret numbers, being whole steps and half steps, I can now direct you to anywhere on the bass by telling you to move up or down a certain number of whole steps or half steps. This is how you will direct yourself to the note of your choice just a few minutes from now. You've probably already heard that in music, we name notes after letters. A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the names of 7 of our notes. Where it gets tricky is in knowing the distance between each of those notes, which is unfortunately not the same. From A to B and from B to C, those are different distances. I'm going to give you a rule to remember, and then we're going to go over and look at the details and find out exactly what all the parts of the rule mean. The rule is all natural notes are a whole step apart, with the exception of B to C and E to F. Natural just means a regular note. So A, B, C, D, just a regular letter name, we call those naturals. We'll get to what the not natural notes are later in the lesson. Here we see all the notes in a line, where each vertical mark represents a different fret. Hopefully this makes it easier for you to visualize. As you can see, we have whole steps between each of these pairs of natural notes, with the exception of B to C and E to F. Those are only a half step apart. This shows us that our rule is correct. All of these notes are a whole step apart. B to C and E to F, those are our half steps. So all you need to memorize are those 2 exceptions. If you always travel a whole step between notes with the 2 exceptions of B to C and E to F, then you will always know how far it is to the next note. Of course, these notes keep on going in both directions like an endless piano keyboard. When you get to G, you arrive at the note A, which is 1 octave below the lower A, and it just keeps on going like that. I mentioned before that all of these notes, A through G, are called natural or naturals. Think of the word natural as a note's last name. If your name is John Doe, for example, I could call you John, or I could call you John Doe. Either way, we know who I'm talking about. Well, I want you to think of the word natural as being a note's last name. Well, if I'm talking about the note A, I could say A, and you would know what I was talking about. I could also say A natural, and I haven't really changed the information that I'm giving you. I'm just giving you more complete, more specific information about this note. It's like the note's last name, A natural. So if A is specifically natural, what else could it be? Well, this is where the notes in between the natural notes get named. It's a whole step from the note A to the note B. Well, what's in between? If I have a note, say A, and I move it up by a half step, we call it a sharp, and it gets this symbol. If I have a note, say B, and I move it down by a half step, we call it flat, and it gets this symbol. And that's your next rule to memorize. A note that is moved up by a half step is called a sharp, and a note that is moved down by a half step is called a flat. So, if we have an A, and we move it up by a half step, we call it an A sharp. If we have a B, and we move it down by a half step, we call it a B flat. What gives, man? That's like the same note. This guy doesn't know anything. But as it turns out, a single note can be called by multiple names, depending on the context. So just like we have the words there, and there in the English language, and they're spelled 3 different ways, we can have up to 3 spellings or 3 different names for any one given note. And it all depends on how that note is functioning. Now, don't worry about this today, because we're not going to go into that. All I want you to know is that there are multiple names for any given note. And we're okay with that. Now we're going to go through an exercise to let you practice what you've just learned and develop some confidence in being able to find notes on your own. Be sure to go through part 2 of this series, where we tackle the unique challenge of actually memorizing all of these, along with some more exercises to help us with that as well. What we are going to do here is actually pretty simple. I call this crawling up the string. And until you memorize your notes, this is the method that you will use to either find a note that you're looking for, that you want to play, or to name a note that you are already playing. We're going to accomplish this by asking 2 questions. The first question is, what is the next note after this one? And the second question is this an exception? So let's start with the open E. I play the E, and first question is, what is the next note? Well, the next note is F. Okay, second question, is this an exception? E to F. Well, yes, E to F is an exception. So we're going to go up by a half step. So we're going to go up to the first fret. Okay, let's find the next note. What's the next note? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So our next note is G. Second question, is this an exception? We think, well, is that B to C? Is that E to F? No, it's not an exception, so that's a whole step. So we're at F, we're going to go up a whole step to G. And we can crawl up the string that way, one note at a time. Let's actually look for a note this time. I'd like you to find the D on your A string. So we'll start with the open A. First question, what's the next note? Next note is B. Second question, is A to B an exception? No, it is not. So we play a whole step from our open string, our second fret, our B. Okay, am I at D yet? No, I'm not at D yet. I'm looking for a D, right? So we're going to keep crawling up that string. My next note is C. Okay, is that an exception? I'm going from B to C, and yes, that's an exception. We're only going to go up a half step from here. So I go from B up to C, one fret. I was at the second fret, now I'm at the third fret. Okay, we're not at D yet, so we're going to keep crawling up that string. We're at the note C. What's the next note? It's D. Excellent, so we're almost there. Is C to D an exception? No, it's not. It's not B to C, it's not E to F. So we're going to take C and we're going to go up a whole step from there to our D. And I've found the note that I'm looking for. Now let's look at actually figuring out what note we're playing. I'd like you to play the third fret on the D string. Okay, we have a D string, we have a third fret here. I'm going to play that note. I have no idea what note this is, so I'm going to crawl up to it to figure it out. I'm at the open D, next note is E, D to E is not an exception, therefore it's a whole step, so E is my second fret. My next note is F, E to F is an exception, so that's only going to be a half step, and so I'm going to go up a half step to my note F. Well, there I am, I'm at the third fret, and I've discovered that my note is F. So here's the exercise. We are going to crawl up each of our strings from low to high, from the open string to the 12th fret, playing only the natural notes. The theory is if you can find your natural notes, you can find your sharps and flats because they're right next to them. We're going to stop at the 12th fret where these double dots are because that is the same note as your open string. And so if I can crawl up to the 12th fret, if I can find any note up to there, I should be able to find any note past it. Again, we're going to start with the E string, we're going to crawl all the way up to the 12th fret, and then we're going to do the A string, the D string, and the G. I'm going to put some drums on at a slow tempo, and we're going to play a note every 2 beats. This gives you a little bit of time to think, but not a lot of time to think. I want to create a sense of urgency for you so that you can get used to thinking about these things quickly. Okay, here we go. All the natural notes from open to 12, 2 beats per note, 4 clicks, and we're in 2, 3, 4. Open E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, exception half step to C, whole step to D, and here is our 12th fret. Next is A, whole step to B, exception to C, then there comes D, whole step to E, and a half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, next is open D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C, that's an exception, whole step to D, next is open G, whole step to A, whole step to B, exception to C, then there comes D, half step to whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, and we're out. There you go. If someone asks you to play a note, you can find it. If you want to know what note it is you're playing, now you can figure it out. I hope you were paying attention because now I'm going to give you a couple of quizzes just to see if you can put this skill into practice. Here's the deal. I'm going to give you a note to play on each of our 4 strings. I'm going to turn the drums on. I'm going to give you 8 beats or 2 bars to answer my question. At the end of the 2 bars, I'm going to give you the answer, so hopefully you've got the answer by that time. And then I will crawl up the string after each one to show you why we should have gotten the answer that I gave to you. Okay, first question. On the E string, I would like you to play me the note C. Go. There. That's where our C is going to be. 8th fret. So if you played the 8th fret on the E string, you got it right. Here's how we could have found that. We are at the open E, have a half step to F, that's an exception, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, and then a half step to C. The answer is the 8th fret. Question 2. I would like you to find me on the A string the note E. That should be your answer. The 7th fret of the A string is the note E. Let's crawl up and figure it out. Open A, whole step to B, half step to C, whole step to D, whole step to E, and we're there. 7th fret on the A string is the note E. Okay, question 3. This is going to be a little bit tougher. I would like you to find me on the D string the note B flat. Your answer should have been the 8th fret on the D string is a B flat. Let's figure that out together. We have the open D, we go a whole step to E, we go a half step to F, we go a whole step to G, we're at the 5th fret now, we're going to go a whole step to A, that's the 7th fret, whole step to B, that's the 9th fret, but we passed our B flat. We know that because B flat should be a half step below B. So we're going to go ahead and adjust that, make it a B flat. The B flat is the 8th fret on the D string. Last question. This is for the G string. I would like you to play me the note F sharp. F sharp. That's it. Should be the 11th fret on the G. Let's crawl up and figure it out together. We have the open G, we have a whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C, whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F, and then, if that's an F, we're just a half step away from the F sharp, which would be your next fret. So the F sharp is the 11th fret on your G. That's it. How did you do? Did you get them all on time? Let me know how many you got right in the comments. I got just one more quiz for you. Let's check it out. Okay, for our next and final quiz, we're going to do the opposite. I'm going to play the note, and you're going to tell me what note it is that I'm playing. Same 2-bar time limit. Here we go. Name this note on the E string. G. You should have said G. So I was on the 3rd fret. Hopefully you could see that. I was trying to be clear there. Of the E string, 3rd fret is G. We have the open E, we have a half step to F, we have a whole step to G. Therefore, this note that I'm playing there, that's a G. Next question, I'm going to play a note on the A string, and I want you to name it. Here we go. F sharp. I'm on the 9th fret of the A string, right here, and the note is F sharp. Let's take a look. Open A, whole step to B, half step to C, 2 frets to D, 2 frets to E, that half step to F, which means that we're just a little bit past that, which means if that's an F sharp. So the answer is F sharp. Now, you may have overshot that. When you got to the F, you might have gone up to the G, realized that you passed the note that I was playing, and adjusted that G down to a G flat. Well, I said F sharp, which makes your G flat wrong. Just kidding. F sharp or G flat are both perfectly good answers. Next question, D string. I'm going to play a note. You're going to name it. Here we go. The note is C. The note is C. So we're at the 10th fret on the D string. If we crawl up the D string, we have D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C. That's it. Simple as that. The final question on the G string. What note is this? D flat. I'm thinking D flat. So I go to G, I go a whole step up to my A, whole step up to my B, half step to C. Now you could have said, well, from here, I'm just 1 fret away from that 6th fret that Alex was playing, and that would be a C sharp. Or you could have said, I went to a D, and then I realized I overshot that note, and I went back and I played a D flat. So C sharp or D flat, both are perfectly correct answers. There you go. How did you do? Did you get them all on time? Let me know. Now that you know how to find your notes, be sure to check out part 2 of this series. That's where I will take on the task of actually memorizing all of these notes, including sharing with you some secret tips to get it done rather quickly. In the description, I've also included a link to a free PDF download. This will give you a map of the fretboard as well as some tips on tuning and some advice on how to find your notes in the bass clef. If you find this useful, please give me a shout out and let me know. Above all else, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next lesson. I don't want that, you don't want that, nobody wants that, so be sure to hit subscribe and I'll see you again next time. If you want to know more about the gear that I'm using, such as the drum machine or the DI box that I like to use, I will include links to those in the description. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here today. I hope you learned a lot. Happy note finding to you, and I will see you back here next time in the studio. Let's start again on the... No, that's not the 8th fret. No, it's on the bass. Whoa, you know what I mean. Okay, and that's my phone going off. And that's the timer.